So we are going to skip the first page. We're not going to be solving any trig functions, but you do need to know your formulas for converting polar to rectangular. So our formulas would be x is equal to r times cosine of theta, and y is equal to r times sine of theta. So in the last 2 pages of the review, there's formulas that we're going to give you. These 2 are not formulas that we're giving to you, so you need to know these. So this is our r and this is our theta. So x is equal to 1 times cosine of pi over 4. On our unit circle, we're going to look to see what pi over 4, cosine of pi over 4 is. So pi over 4 cosine tells us we look at the x value, so that would be square root 2 over 2. So cosine of pi over 4 would be square root 2 over 2 times 1 would just be square root 2 over 2. Then we're going to do the same thing for the y. Y is equal to r times sine of theta. So 1 times sine of pi over 4. Sine tells us we look at the y value. So sine, we look at the y value. Square root 2 over 2 times 1 would just be square root 2 over 2. So our y would be square root 2 over 2. So then as a point, this would be square root 2 over 2, comma, square root 2 over 2. So this would be our rectangular point. Next, when we eliminate the parameter, we want to get rid of the t. So we want to make one of our equations t equals, and then we're going to plug that into the other one. So if one of them is squared, you always want to work with the one that's not squared because it's going to be harder to make the t squared just t equals. So I'm going to work with the first one. To get it to be t equals, I'm going to add 1 to move it to the other side. So t would equal x plus 1. Then I'm going to take what t is equal to and substitute it into the other equation. So we have y equals x plus 1 squared plus 10. Now your test is all multiple choice. So look at the answer choices. If this doesn't match any answer choices, then you may have to simplify it further. X plus 1 squared, we'd have to FOIL it. So it'd be x plus 1 times x plus 1. So that would give us x squared plus 2x plus 1 plus 10. So we have x squared plus 2x plus 11. So either this would be our answer or this one. They're the same thing. One's just simplified a little bit more. So just look at your answer choices. So next, we're going to be using the law of sines and cosines to solve our triangles. You're going to be given these formulas. So these are on the last page. I think we give you both law of sines and law of cosines. But if you have a pair, if we have side A and angle A, we're going to start with the pair for our law of sines. So that tells us we're going to use law of sines. We can say sine of the angle, so sine of 32 over 16 is equal to sine of the angle, so sine of 50 over B, because B is the other angle that we have, so we have to find side B first. So here we can cross multiply and divide. So we have B times sine of 32 equals 16 times sine of 50. Divide by sine of 32, and then we'll put this in the calculator. Yes. So this is what we're putting in the calculator. We're talking about degrees here, so make sure your calculator is in degrees. That should give us 23.1, we'll call it. Again, use your answer choices. It doesn't matter what decimal place you round to, just look at the answer choices. So this would be side B. To find angle C, we have 2 angles, so we can just add them together and subtract from 180. So for angle C, we can do 180 minus 32 minus 50, which would give us 98. So angle C would be 98 degrees. Then we would want to use law of sines again to find what side C is. So B, we said was 23.1. Then for C, we can set up our same proportions. So I'll start with the A's. Sine of 32 over 16 equals, now sine of C would be 98 over C. Again, cross multiply and divide, plug it into your calculator. For 11, we want to find the area of the triangle, so we're going to use our area formula. So area of a triangle is 1/2 times B times C times sine of A. So we multiply the two sides and then multiply the sine of the angle. So here our area would be 1/2 times B, which is 7, times C, which is 10, times sine of 33. Then we just plug it into the calculator. So our area would be 19.06, or we could call it 19.1. It doesn't give us any units here, but again, units aren't going to be that important because it's multiple choice. This is not a formula that we are giving you, so you have to memorize it. The area. Just multiply the two sides and the sine of the angle. Also keep in mind that if we have side-side angle that we're given, you could possibly have one triangle or two triangles or no triangles. If we have time, I'll come back and do one of those. If not, I'll put it in the PDF of the answers. But just keep in mind, if it gives you two sides and an angle, it's possible that you could have one triangle, two triangles, or no triangles. Let's go to the next page. All right, next let's do 37 on the next page. So for 37, we're going to find B. Let's do U minus V. So it gives us vector U and it gives us vector V. So we just subtract the first number minus the first number. So -5 minus 4. And then the second number minus the second number, 2 minus 4. So this would be -9, -2. Keep in mind with your vectors, it could be written as a vector in component form like this, or it could be written as -5i plus 2j. This is the same thing as saying bracket -5, -2, or +2 bracket. Or it could be written as 4i plus 4j. Same with our answer. This would be written as -9i minus 2j. It's multiple choice, so it doesn't matter how you want to leave the answer, but just know that these are the same thing. The question might be written with i's and j's, so just know that is talking about a component form, or it's not component form, but it's talking about a vector. Any questions here? All right, let's look at 62. We want to find the dot product. So the dot product is the first times the first plus the second times the second. So -7 times -4 would be 28. Plus the second times the second, bless you. 12 times 14 would be -168. So 28 minus 168 would be -140. So this would be our dot product. Dot product is first times the first plus the second times the second. Perfect. 65, same thing. It's asking for the dot product. I'm going to change this question just to give us some practice. Let's make it U dot V. So for our dot product, we do the first times the first. So -3 times 2 would be -6. Plus the second times the second, be -4 times 1 is -4, so this gives us -10. So our dot product of U and V would be -10. 66, let's practice finding the magnitude. Again, I'm going to change the question. I'm just going to get rid of that -3. We're just going to practice finding the magnitude. The magnitude of vector V. So our magnitude is the square root of the first number squared plus the second number squared. So the square root of 4, this should be 1. 4 plus 1. So the square root of 5. If it just gives you points and it doesn't give you the vector, to come up with component form, so to come up with the vector, I'll write that down, component form, which is the brackets, we do terminal minus initial. I think most of the questions give you the vector, it gives you component form already, but just in case, if it just were to give you the points, you can start off by finding component form by doing terminal minus initial. Let's take a look at matrices. So number 5, I added a question here. Just using the system of equations for number 5, I said write the augmented matrix. Yes, there's going to be a question on your test that is easy as just write the augmented matrix. So our augmented matrix here would be 3, -2, 1, and then 0. The next row would be 6, 2, 3, and -2 is our answer, and then 3, I think this should be a plus, I can't tell because it's covered, but 4, we'll call it +4, 5, 5. Remember when we write the size or the dimensions of our matrix, it is row by column. So here we have 3 rows and 4 columns. So this would be a 3 by 4, bless you. Be careful that if it's not in order, if the X, Y, and Z's are out of order, put them in order first, then put them into your matrix. Next part of this question says to solve. You need to know how to solve a matrix, but it is multiple choice. So use your answer choices to help you. Your answer choice A is going to be written as a ordered triple if it's an X, Y, Z, but it would say like 0, 1, 2. This is your X value, your Y value, your Z value. You can just plug them in to see which one works. Plug it into each equation. If it doesn't work in the first one, move on to your next answer choice. Plug the next one in. So use your answer choices to help you. If you want to solve this out, that's totally fine. I would say this is one of the longer questions if you were to solve it just working it out. So it would be a whole lot easier and a whole lot quicker. Just take your answer choices, plug them in. Does that make sense? Okay, so use your answer choices to help you. Number 12, we want to subtract our matrices, so A minus B. C also says 3A minus 2B. I'll do C just because it's a little bit more challenging. We got a couple extra steps here. So if we have a scalar in front of our matrix, we have to distribute that first. So let's do C. 3A minus 2B. So I'm going to start by distributing 3 to A and 2 to B. I'm going to write my matrices over here. So when we distribute 3, we would get 15, 12, 12, and then -12, -12, 0, and 3, 6, 0. Then when we distribute 2 to B, we would get 8, 8, 0, 6, 4, 2, and 2, -4, 0. Then we subtract them. So it says 3A minus 2B. After I distribute my scalars, I'm going to subtract. So 15 minus 8 would be 7. 12 minus 8 is 4. And 12 minus 0 is 12. -12 minus 6 would be -18. -12 minus 4 is -16. 0 minus 2 would be -2. 3 minus 2 would be 1. 6 minus -4. Minus a negative turns into a plus. So this would be 6 plus 4 is 10. 0 minus 0 is 0. Again, use your answer choices to help you. If you figure out the first row and it only matches one answer choice, that's it. You can pick that as your answer and move on. Any questions here? Next, let's find the determinant of a 2 by 2. Determinant is major minus minor. So major start up at the top. Negative 25 times negative 7 would be 175. Minus 6 times 18, which would be 108. So 175 minus 108 would be 67. So our determinant is 67. 17 says use Kramer's rule to solve. Again, it's multiple choice. You can solve it however you want. Use your answer choices. Plug them in if you want to. So you don't have to solve it any particular way that the question says. Just find the answer. It is multiple choice. Use your answer choices. Next, we have our arithmetic and geometric sequences. Make sure you read the directions for these. They'll ask for either the first 5 terms, it'll ask for the sum, it'll ask for the formula. So just read the directions so you know what they're asking for. Number 1 says find the first 5 terms of the sequence. So we just plug in 1 through 5. Again, use your answer choices. If it asks for the first 5 terms, you could probably just plug in the first 2 or 3 and see which answer choices match. So for 1, when we plug in 1, we'd get 2 over 2 plus 1, which would be 2/3. For my second term, we have 2 squared over 2 squared plus 1. So this would be 4 over 5. Third term, we have 2 cubed over 2 cubed plus 1. So this would be 8 over 9, and so on. Any questions here? So our answer would be written like 2/3, comma 4/5, comma 8/9. Good here? That is it for this page. If you look at the formulas that we're giving you the sum formulas, but you do have to know the general formulas. So general formula for an arithmetic sequence is a sub n equals a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. So this is for an arithmetic sequence. Arithmetic sequence is when we add to get from one term to the next. Add or add a negative number, so subtract. Then we also have our formula for a geometric sequence, which is a sub n is equal to a sub 1 times r to the power of n minus 1. So geometric is when we multiply. Sometimes it might give you a sequence. I think I wrote an example on the next page that we'll do that one. But it might give you a sequence of numbers and it'll say find the whatever term or find the sum of your first 10 terms. You may have to use your formula to find the 10th term to then plug it into the sum formula. So these two you definitely need to know. So make sure you have these memorized. The sum formulas we're going to give you. So kind of like what I was saying, we'll start with the one that I added on the bottom here. It says find the sum of the first 5 terms of the sequence. We can see the pattern. What are we doing to get from one number to the next? What are we doing to get? We're multiplying by 2. So that would make this a geometric sequence. Times 2, times 2, times 2. I could keep this pattern going and find the last term of the sequence if I wanted to. So I can multiply by 2 to find my 5th term because it asks the sum of the first 5 terms. So that would be 8. You could also plug it into the formula to find your 5th term. Then it's asking for the sum. So we're going to use our sum formula. So we give you the sum formula. A sub n is equal to a sub 1 times 1 minus r to the power of n over 1 minus r. So a sub n is equal to, our first term is 1/2 times 1 minus r. What is r? What is r? It would be 2. R is our common ratio. That is what we're multiplying to get from one number to the next. So this would be r. So 2 to the nth power. N is our number of terms. So we're looking for the first 5 terms. So 5 would be our exponent over 1 minus 2. From here, just have to simplify. 2 to the 5th power would be 32. So 1 minus 32 would give us negative 31 up top. Over 1 minus 2 would be negative 1. So we end up with 31 over 2. Again, use your answer choices to help you. It might be written as 31 over 2 or 15.5. So both of these would be correct. Thank you. So here we didn't even need the last term. We just needed our common ratio, the first term, and the number of terms. All right, there's a few more on this page that I want to practice. Zoe.
How do you know whether to use which formula? Because there was 2, finite and infinite.
So infinite would be if it asked for the sum of the infinite terms. So it would either have, if it was infinite, it will either have the little infinity symbol on the sum, or it would have ... It'll give you your sequence and have ... And it'll probably say in the directions, find this infinite sum. The other one is going to have an ending. So here it says find the sum of the first 5 terms. We're just looking for the sum of 5 terms, so it's not infinite. So we just use the finite one. Let's look at 38 at the top of the page. We want to find the formula for a sub n for the arithmetic sequence and find the sum of the first 25 terms of the sequence. So to find the formula, we're going to use arithmetic formula. So a sub n equals a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. So a sub n equals, a sub 1 is 10 plus n minus 1. We just leave for our formula as n minus 1. D is our common difference. Here it doesn't tell us what D is. I thought that it did. But if it did, like for 37, we would just plug in D. If it doesn't, we can use the formula, but in a different way. We can use a sub 3 equals a sub 1 plus, instead of n minus 1 here, it'd be 3 minus 1 times d. So a sub 3 is 28 equals 10 plus 2 times d. Subtract 10, we get 18 equals 2d. So d would be 9. So this would be our formula. So the general formula for a sub n. It could be written like this. It could simplify it by distributing the 9 into the parentheses. So we have 10 plus 9n minus 9, which would be 9n plus 1. Again, use your answer choices to help you. You can plug in a sub 1 into all of your answer choices and see if it matches. See if you have the pattern. So use your answer choices to help you. The second part of this question says find the sum for the first 25 terms. We need our sum of a arithmetic sequence formula. All right, so the sum of an arithmetic sequence, add this to your formula list that you have to memorize, is n times a sub 1 plus a sub n over 2. Where n is the number of terms, a sub 1 is our first term, a sub n is the last term. So if it asks for the first 25 terms, we have to find our 25th term and then divide it by 2. So a sub 1 here, it gives us would be 10. A sub n would be a sub 25. We need to find what our fifth term is, so we could plug 25 into our formula here. 9 times 25 plus 1 would be 226 over 2, and then n is 25. So our sum would be 25 times 10 plus 226 over 2. That will give you 2,950. So this would be our sum. So this formula, now we're up to 5 formulas that you have to remember. Add it to your list. Any questions here? Perfect. For 39, 2 different ways that we can solve it. This is an arithmetic formula because it looks like y equals mx plus b. If it's in that form, it's an arithmetic formula. So it's an arithmetic sum. You can use your arithmetic sum formula, or you can plug in numbers 1 through 10 and just add them all together. This one might take a little bit of time because you're plugging in numbers 1 through 10, so you actually have 10 numbers that you're plugging in. If it was like 1 through 4, I would totally recommend just plugging it in and adding them all together. You can put it in your calculator. So you could do it either way. If we were to plug it in and add them together, I'll show you what that looks like. It would be 2 times 1 minus 3, which would be negative 1. Then we'd plug in 2. So 2 times 2 minus 3 would be 1. 2 times 3 minus 3 would be 3. And so on. We are going to do this until we have 2 times 10 minus 3, which would be 17. And we just add up all of these answers. The other way you could do it is plug it into your sum formula that we just did. S sub n is equal to n times a sub 1 plus a sub n over 2. So we have 10 terms. A sub 1 was negative 1. A sub n would be when we plug the last number in. So that we did was 17 over 2. You'll get the same answer either way. So up to you how you want to solve. If you don't remember the formula, just plug in each one. Same thing for 57, but this is a geometric. If it has an exponent, it's a geometric sequence, where the base would be your r. So you could either use the formula, or if you wanted to, plug in 1 through 7. This, again, I would say is like a medium amount of numbers. You may want to use the formula, but if you had something like 1 through 4, I would recommend just plugging in your 4 values and adding them up. Any questions here? Let's look at 55. Just find the indicated term of the geometric sequence algebraically, and we're not going to use a table. Let's just find our 6th term. So if it gives us our first term, it says it's a geometric sequence, so we're multiplying to get from one number to the next. What would we multiply to get from 16 to negative 8? Negative 1/2. Awesome. So we can just keep doing that to find the next term, until we get to the 6th one. So negative 8 times negative 1/2 would be positive 4. 4 times negative 1/2 would be negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 1/2 would be positive 1. And positive 1 times negative 1/2 would be negative 1/2. So our common ratio is negative 1/2. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would be our 6th term. Last one on this page is 74. It says, use the binomial theorem to expand and simplify the expression. This is Pascal's triangle. So we've got a little triangle of ones. Our next row would be 1, 2, 1, 1, 3, 3, 1, 1, 4, 6, 4, 1, and so on. This is the most recent thing, so I don't want to spend a lot of time doing it, but make sure you know how to do Pascal's triangle. All right, next page we have probability. Two things. We have permutations and combinations. Which one do you think the order matters? Take the other one. Good guess. Permutation order matters. So permutation would be something like a race. If it asked you like what's the probability that these 8 people came in first, second, or third, or like the school play. I think the one on the quiz or test that we had was like what's the probability that people were like Snoopy or Woodstock or whatever those people were. So the order matters. It matters who's who. Can't be both Snoopy and Woodstock in the play. Keep that in mind. Let's look at 99. So given a bag of marbles, you draw without replacement 6 green, 7 yellow, 4 blue, and 5 red. What's the probability that they're both green? So remember, it's what we want over the total. So I have 6 green marbles, my first pick, over the total amount of marbles, which would be 22. Just add them up together. 6 plus 7 plus 4 plus 5 would be 22. Without replacement means that I'm betting that I picked a green marble out and I put it on the table. So now I have one less green marble in the bag. So this would be, and when they're both green, I'm picking a green one and a green one. And means that we multiply. So now I have 5 out of 21 marbles that are green in the bag. So when we multiply these together, you can simplify first, then multiply, or multiply, then simplify. I'll simplify here. 3 goes into both of these. I think that's, and 2 goes into 22 11 times. So this would be 5 over 77. So remember, and means that we multiply, or means that we add. All right, next, you guys will have conic questions, so parabola, hyperbola, ellipse, but we're going to give you all the formulas. So just plug it into the formulas, make sure you pay attention. For number 4, it says write the equation of the parabola in standard form with the given information. So our vertex is at 0, 0. Our focus is at 5, 0. So we're going to do the right 5 and stay at 0, which means our parabola opens to the right. It opens in the direction of the focus. Since our parabola opens to the right, is it x squared or y squared? Y squared. So y squared equals 4p times x. We're not adding anything to our x and y here because our vertex is just 0, 0. If we were, it'd be y minus k squared equals 4p times x minus h. So again, formulas are going to be given to you, so don't stress about remembering the formulas. Just know which one's which. Is p positive or negative here? If it opens to the right. P is positive. So P is the distance from the vertex to the focus. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. P would be 5. So y squared equals 4 times 5 times x. Y squared equals 20x. So that would be our equation. So P is the distance from the vertex to the focus. It is also the distance from the vertex to the directrix. So let's look at number 5. So our vertex is at 0, 0. Directrix is at y equals 3. So I'm going to go to 3 on my y-axis. Put a line there. So our parabola opens away from the directrix. So our parabola is now going to open down. If our parabola opens down, is it x squared or y squared? X squared. So x squared equals 4py. And is p positive or negative? If our parabola opens down, p would be negative. And p is the distance from either the center to the directrix or the center or the vertex to the focus. So here from the vertex to the directrix, we have 3. So p would be negative 3. So x squared equals negative 12y. So again, we're giving you the formulas. You just have to know what to do with them. Any questions here? Next page says graph. Find the center, vertices, and foci. Again, multiple choice. Use your answer choices. For some of these questions, you may even just need to know how to find the center, and then you can pick your answer from there. Our center here would be 1, comma, negative 4. Remember, you change the signs. So we're going to go to the right 1 and down 4. This is an ellipse. An ellipse is an oval. If A is under, so if the bigger denominator is under the x, it is going to be a horizontal ellipse. So if I'll say x squared over a, if a is bigger, then it's going to be a horizontal ellipse. If a is under the y squared, then it would be a vertical ellipse. These should be a squared on the bottom. Because our formula would be, just our general formula is x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. So it's super important. It has to equal 1. So that's one thing that is not correct about 10 is we have to fix it. We have to make it equal to 1. So I can divide everything by 2, or it might be easier to think about it as multiplying by 1/2. So everything gets multiplied by 1/2 because 2 times 1/2 would be 1 now. Then we just multiply our denominators together. So I still have x minus 1 squared up top, but now it's over 18 times 2, which would be 36, plus y plus 4 squared up top, and now it's over 8 times 2, which would be 16. And then it's equal to 1. So now 36 is our a squared. So a would be 6, b would be, this would be b squared, so b would be 4. Now since a is under the x, we're moving along the x-axis, however many a is, so 6. So we're going to go to the left and to the right 6. And then since b is under the y, we move up and down. So we would go up and down 4. So I'm going to go up 4 and down 4. So this would be our ellipse. We can find our foci by doing c squared equals a squared minus b squared. But since the test is multiple choice, just knowing where center is and where to graph it, you could probably use process of elimination to pick your answer from there. So find the equation of the hyperbola. It gives us the vertices and it passes through a point. So our equation for a hyperbola, they're given to you. So you can go to the last page on the review. We have x minus h squared over, I'll call it a squared for now, minus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. Now it depends. If our hyperbola opens sideways like this, the x squared comes first. If our hyperbola opens vertically, the y squared comes first. So it depends on which way that it opens. So for 17, let's graph what we have. Our vertices are at 0, 6. So stay at 0, go up 6. And 0, negative 6. So our vertices are going to open up and down. So what comes first, x or y? Our hyperbola is going to open up and down, so y would come first. We have y minus, our center is the midpoint between them. So that would be 0, 0. So it's actually y minus 0, which would just be y squared minus x squared as our numerators. And then a squared is going to go below the y squared. But even just knowing this, you could probably find the answer from here. Knowing that your y squared comes first, you'll probably be able to eliminate at least 2 answer choices. A is the distance from the center to the vertex. So 0 to 6 would be 6. So a squared would be 36. We don't know what b is yet, so I'll just call it b squared. But if it passes through the point 2, negative 8, we can plug in 2 into the x and negative 8 for the y and solve for b. So the question may not be exactly like this, but knowing that when it is a vertical hyperbola, y squared comes first. When it is a horizontal hyperbola, if the hyperbola is open sideways, x squared comes first. Knowing this is super, super, super important. Also, make sure you know how to find partial fraction decomposition. So just like we had on the last quiz and test. So factor the denominator. What are 2 factors of negative 6 that add to 1? 3 and negative 2, perfect. So this would be x plus 3 and x minus 2. Make sure you know how to factor. A over x plus 3 plus b over x minus 2. Again, even just knowing this, knowing that these are your denominators, you may be able to eliminate half your answer choices just by factoring. So the next 2 pages are formulas. These are going to be given to you. Not these because they're irrelevant, they don't apply. But the rest of them will be given. So in addition to finding the sum of a finite geometric and infinite geometric, make sure you know the arithmetic sum and the general formulas. So there's 3 additional that you need to know here, 3 that you need to memorize. And your converting. So there's 2 converting formulas. Polar to rectangular.